What's up, everybody, and welcome into the show. Hope you guys enjoyed that Thursday night football game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Tennessee Titans. The Pittsburgh Steelers walking away with a 20-16 victory in I guess I would say surprisingly exciting Thursday night football game, especially between the two opponents, and Thursday night football games usually being towards the dud side of things. But Jason, as I welcome you in, buddy, how are you doing? Thanks for joining me tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Cole. Doing well as always and ready to talk some football.
Yeah, man, it's really good time of year. It's honestly the best time of year in my opinion, other than the kind of before summer, the late spring, early summertime when it's playoff time for hockey and NBA season. But I love when hockey's in the air, playoffs for the CFL, like I was saying, and NFL getting into the full swing of things. It's a good time of year. So excited to talk some football as always, Jason. But before we do, if anybody's tuning in tonight, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, get over to Jason's channel. Support him over at Hussey's Huddle on YouTube as well as Twitter. Go support all the good content that Jason's got going on over there. It'd be greatly appreciated on both of our accounts. So, Jason, let's get into it, buddy. Like we were mentioning, it was a very exciting game that going into it, I was definitely intrigued, Jason. Last week, we kind of jokingly embraced the chaos on some of our matchups that we kind of drafted. And some of the ones I kind of leaned towards were favoring some of the quarterback matchups. This one was an interesting one for me, Jason, being as Will Levis kind of impressed in his debut. I believe he had the 4 touchdowns, 19 for 29, 238 yards in his debut with the Tennessee Titans. In those sweet Houston Oilers throwbacks last week, Jason. I don't know about you, buddy, but I think those are probably the best uniforms in the league. I think, in my opinion, high up there, in my opinion. But there is some other ones that maybe just aren't coming to mind. But looked very well in his debut last week. I was intrigued to see him play this week. But then the Pittsburgh Steelers are, no offense, a tough offensive team to watch, I would say. But things kind of turned around, I think, for both parties tonight. And even though it was a lower scoring game, it was an exciting back and forth game. And I guess, Jason, I would take it over. I'll kind of pass it over to you, buddy. What was maybe your biggest takeaway from tonight's 20-16 victory for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, unfortunately, my biggest takeaway was the refs. I think the refs were everywhere in this game, and it really was, throughout the course of the entire game. I really thought that, especially in the first half, you saw a lot of these drives were not really the offense is doing anything, but the defense is taking penalties to extend drives. So the refs were just everywhere in this one, whether or not they were legit calls or not. I think that some of them were, some of them weren't. I think some of the roughing the passer calls were a little bit iffy. The one on Jeffrey Simmons, I thought, was pretty iffy in my opinion. So I think that is honestly my biggest takeaway from this game, just from watching it. But I think that, overall, I was impressed by Will Levis. I thought that he showed a lot of poise. This was a tough ask for him to go on a short week in his second career start and win at Pittsburgh, but he gave them a shot to win and ultimately just came up short right at the end. And for Pittsburgh, I mean, it's the same old, same old. This is the classic Pittsburgh Steelers victory. And I think, they're led by their defense, but they do just enough on offense. Just basic performance from Kenny Pickett again. The running backs chipping in a little bit more, and the receivers. They have some talent on that side of the ball. They really should be a higher producing team, but ultimately they do just enough to win this game, and that's kind of the Pittsburgh Steelers way right now.
Yeah, it is, Jason. To tie things back to the referee point of things, things are bad when Al Michaels or anybody on the broadcast is kind of making jokes about it. He was kind of like, "Oh, here's another flag on almost every other play." So, things are bad when that's happening on a consistent basis. And I think referees kind of just get involved a little bit too much. Um, and then kind of tying to your some of the roughing the passer calls. I think it's just kind of the letter of the law, unfortunately, because I think the one early on TJ Watt, I believe it was the opening drive for the Tennessee Titans. TJ Watt, I believe, had a roughing the passer called on him. Yes, it was probably to the letter of the law. Like I said, he drove him into the ground and kind of landed on him. You're supposed to not use all your body weight and fall onto the quarterback, but I just feel like that's like common sense so hard for a pass rusher that's especially like a TJ Watt who's playing full speed to kind of like gear down after he gets to the quarterback in a sense when he's been taught his whole life to finish through the whistle and finish to the ground. So I think it's just it's a tough thing for the refs, and it's kind of weird because Jason, I know you're not a big Pat McAfee fan, but they talk about it all the time of the NFL referees not being full time. I believe that's a rare thing in sports of them not being full time referees, and kind of I feel like that should be a change that we should see in the NFL in the future. But like kind of maybe tying things back to the Pittsburgh Steelers offensively, Jason. Expecting a slow start from them, and obviously they come out and score on their first drive. Kenny Pickett looks, comfortable. They're able to, I believe Najee Harris ends up punching it in for a touchdown. But they had a nice showing from in the backfield tonight from their 1-2 punch of T.J. Warren. I believe he had like 75 yards, and then I believe Najee Harris had his chipped in with 81 yards as well as the touchdown. So they were able to be that 1-2 punch, and really able to be the driving force of what kept a lot of drives going. Um, and just ultimately why they kind of escaped away with the victory more than probably winning by a touchdown or two is I think their quarterback Kenny Pickett just not being able to be a consistent target. I think I guess this is no fault to his own. I guess the thing that we alluded to earlier, Jason, is that the touchdown, whatever you want to call it, drop or just lack of awareness by George Pickens. That should definitely be 6 points that Kenny Pickens, should be responsible. Kenny Pickett should be responsible for throwing a nice ball there. And earlier in the game, Jason, they kind of showed a replay of Kenny Pickett missing George Pickens on that under route earlier in the game, and they said because Herb Shee was kind of alluding to, Matt Canada's been getting a lot of crap around town, and even outside of Pittsburgh, I hear people the chance of fire Canada even outside of the Pittsburgh sports team. So he's been getting a lot of heat lately, and he was saying, he can draw something up, but maybe the quarterback's not executing it, and they were kind of spotlighting that in the first half there, and I think it's kind of true at this point. I think we know who Kenny Pickett is as a quarterback. Unfortunately, he's been a little bit inconsistent because, like you said, I think I like their targets that are there in George Pickens and Deontay Johnson. Shout out to him, Jason. I believe he got his first touchdown in 668 days. If that is correct, Jason, I saw that on Twitter. The first touchdown he scored since 2021. The last time he caught a touchdown pass the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback was Ben Roethlisberger. So, been a long time coming for him. Obviously, they showed a few replays of him kind of just taking a deep breath on the sideline, being able to say, "Thank God I finally got it in the paint and finally scored a touchdown for the first time in a while." And maybe that's maybe create some momentum and maybe it'll snowball for Deontay Johnson and the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. But I just don't know where to go if you're kind of Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers because you're going to be so competitive. I think you're going to be more competitive than a New England Patriots. So you're going to finish around that, probably hover around that 6-11 it is now, 7-9 or what 7-10 I guess it is with the 17 games. I feel like the New England Patriots probably are more likely to finish around maybe 5 or 6 wins opposed to the Pittsburgh Steelers where they'll probably finish around maybe 6 or 7 wins. I know it's only 1 or 2 games more, but it still means more when you're trying to draft for that potential franchise quarterback. Considering I know it's going to be built up to be there's 5 or so quarterbacks, but ultimately, Jason, there's probably only maybe 1 or 2 that are going to pan out to be actual franchise quarterbacks if we're kind of being real when you have a more realistic, I guess, look on things. So if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't know where you go because Mike Tomlin and his kind of culture and his mentality, he's not going to coach to lose games by any means, Jason. I think that defense isn't set to lose games by any means as well. They're going to keep their offense in a lot of games. Obviously, we saw Cam Hayward back in the lineup for the first time since week 1, I believe it was. And with those edge rushers, T.J. Watt and Hightower coming off the edge, Keanu Benton, the rookie out of I believe it is I forget what university, Wisconsin. Keanu Benton, he was somebody that I wanted the Bills to draft. He was kind of a big one-tech deep defensive tackle. He's been showing well. They've been getting some good reviews out of him so far early in the season and in Pittsburgh, as well as Joey Porter, the young cornerback, is doing pretty well. He had some good plays on DeAndre Hopkins tonight. So I think they have a nice young defense. They didn't even have Minkah Fitzpatrick in the lineup tonight. So defensively, I don't really worry about them too much. I think you know what to expect, especially with Mike Tomlin and kind of that culture that they breed of Pittsburgh style of defense and tough nose. And it's just offensively, I don't really know where they go from here, Jason. And do you kind of maybe have a thought on that, Jason? Any thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's difficult because, like you said, they very well could make the playoffs this year or be one of those teams that just misses the playoffs. Look, they have a 5-3 record right now, so they're well on their way to at least being in that conversation. But I mean, I think the question is when it comes to football teams, I think a lot of it you have to look at it. What are their formulas to win games? And I think with Pittsburgh, they really only have a very limited formula. I think anytime a team gets up on them early in a game, they play a team like the Bills, for example, and the Bills, are capable of putting up points in a hurry. Pittsburgh's not a team that's capable of winning those games. So those are the types of teams you're going to face in the playoffs, and you're not necessarily going to be able to shut down teams like you have with this great defense that they have with T.J. Watt and all those guys back there. So I think at the end of the day, the Steelers have a very limited formula right now with Kenny Pickett. I think one thing when you look at his game, there just really isn't a whole lot of wow there. I don't think there's a lot of plays that make you get out of your seat or really impress you in a significant way. He's just a solid NFL quarterback, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think at the end of the day, it may not be enough to really compete against these upper echelon teams in the NFC, the AFC.
Yes, and it's funny, Jason, because we're being a little bit maybe critical of them, but they are only 1 point back or 1 win back of the AFC North leading Baltimore Ravens, and they're obviously ahead of the Cincinnati Bengals. Crossing our fingers as Bills fans, we get the victory over the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday night. Then that kind of keeps them ahead of them even more. So definitely a lot of things to play for, and like that kind of just ties into more of they're not going to coach to lose games or play to lose games over there. They're going to win and try to get into the playoffs, and you never know what happens. I don't think it's likely by any means, but I'm kind of talking about more so the future side of things for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm curious to see, Jason, maybe potentially if they would maybe Kirk Cousins is a free agent this year, maybe tend to lean towards maybe a veteran side of things of maybe Mike Tomlin is not really willing to maybe be as patient with a young type of quarterback, and maybe he's looking to look the veteran type route. I just throw Kirk Cousins out there because I'm not too sure who else is a veteran type quarterback that's a free agent this
Yeah.
upcoming year. Jimmy Garoppolo, I feel like the kind of books out on him that I feel like nobody really wants to invest in him to be a franchise quarterback from this point or from this season on out. I feel like kind of his best years are in San Francisco, if you will. So just curious to see what they do from here on out because of the quarterbacks in the AFC that continue to rise. And we'll touch on Will Levis a little bit. I think he was very impressive in the first half. Jason, he was 12 of 17, 153 yards, and he led 3 scoring drives. Now, ultimately, those 3 scoring drives probably weren't enough because they were a touchdown and 2 field goals. If he's able to lead any more scoring drives, I think he's able to maybe get his team the victory tonight. And probably that's the most thing that cost him is just executing inside the red zone. He was able to drive the field multiple times and get inside the red zone, but just wasn't able to switch threes for sevens, unfortunately, tonight, and that's probably what cost him. And I think you know people might tie to the he just threw an interception at the end and kind of ignore. He did kind of have a little bit of a drive going there with that potentially could have been in his second game, his first game-winning drive. They were, I believe, the 19-yard line, so inside the red zone with definitely an opportunity to score a touchdown, the game-winning touchdown. So I was curious, Jason. There was, I believe, after their first completion, I think there was 11 seconds left. I was curious, their first completion that got them to the 19-yard line. I'm talking about. I was curious. They had 11 seconds left. If they were going to try to maybe throw another sideline pass to get even closer to the end zone. Obviously, they end up going to the Will Levis. I'll be honest, he has a howitzer. The way he's able to just flick the ball and kind of throw it a lot of different arm angles. It's really impressive and really kind of as a fellow quarterback, kind of exciting to watch and kind of just interesting to watch from that point side of things. And Herbstreit kind of touched on it that he tried to look left and try to get the safety to go, but ended up coming back to the right, and just the safety sat on it and was able to make a play on the ball. Or I guess it wasn't even the safety, actually. It was Hightower, the underneath defender, I believe was the linebacker that made the interception, not the safety over top. So unfortunate for Levis, but I wasn't sure what he finished with. Before that final drive, I know it didn't look too great because, like I mentioned, Jason, he finished the half with 12 of 17 for 153 yards. Before that final drive, Jason, because I didn't take it in my notes, I had him at 17 to 28 for 193 yards. So only 2 completions in the second half there for, what is it, maybe 30 something odd yards. I guess it's like 41 yards. So 2 completions for 41 yards, which not great execution wise, and doesn't really give your team the best opportunity to win. So like what I'm seeing so far in the young career of Will Levis, and definitely excited to see him play some more this season. I think uh, they're kind of set up maybe to be a surprise team that could shock some teams in the AFC playoffs. That if they get in, they have the recipe that they have Derrick Henry still in the backfield. If you have a guy like DeAndre Hopkins that's able to pull coverage downfield and lighten up the boxes a little bit for Derrick Henry, they're not able to have 8 9 guys down in the box play that man coverage. I think that's definitely a weapon for them. And if Will Levis is able to prove that he can stretch the field and throw it to their weapons, and I guess this is Jason before we get off this game. Shout out, or I guess prayers up to Treylon Burks, one of their Tennessee Titans wide receivers. Obviously went down with some sort of injury in the game. Obviously, the stretcher obviously had to come out in the cart. Never a great sign, and the ambulance. But I believe they reported that he had movements and all extremities, all of his arms and toes and all that stuff. And I believe he gave a thumbs up. So hopefully all signs are good, and hopefully he's able to make a speedy recovery. Because I think he's another one of their weapons that could be needed and key down the season, down the stretch of the season, getting them into a playoff spot. So, anything else that you maybe want to mention, Jason, or I forgot to mention as far as the Thursday night football game tonight?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about the Titans side of things because I mostly focus on the Pittsburgh Steelers side of things. So I think that with Will Levis, I'm very impressed with how he's played the first couple of games of his career. Obviously, it's early, but what he kind of reminds me of is how Baker Mayfield looked in that first season in the NFL, where he looked like a very confident guy. Baker has a very underrated arm. I think he actually has one of the stronger arms in the NFL at times. And Will Levis, like you said, has a cannon. So I think this guy is capable of being, a potential a franchise guy for them based on what I've seen so far. Obviously, limited sample size. So they're going to be an interesting team to watch down the stretch. But my biggest problem with it is that they already have 5 losses. So, it's going to be an uphill battle to get back in that AFC playoff hunt. But like you said, they could be a team that's kind of play spoiler down the stretch here. They have X factors on that side of the ball, obviously, with Derrick Henry, and DeAndre Hopkins is still him. So I think at the end of the day, this is a scary team going forward, but 3-5 in the season, it's going to be tough for them to get back in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, I would say a minimum of 1 loss. If you're pushing 2 losses, you're probably out at 7 losses. Just judging by who's in the AFC, which is unfortunate for them. 6 losses, you might even be out as well, considering who's probably going to win their division. So I would imagine kind of a great word that you said is they're probably going to play spoiler down the stretch of, maybe it's a God forbid let's hope it's a Miami or something like that, a team that needs to clinch a playoff spot or something like that. That's a wild card team, and they lose and hopefully are maybe out or something like that. Or maybe it's a New York Jets that maybe they're just hanging on to a playoff spot, and maybe the Tennessee Titans are the team to knock them off because they're a competitive team, and I think they're going to be in games week in and week out, but just I think maybe a little bit too long to go to Will Levis, and that's not a bad thing by any means, right? Because maybe they're able to get a higher pick and finish a little bit lower in the standings, get another weapon to them. I think of the Cincinnati Bengals when I think of that, of Joe Burrow going down, them landing Jamar Chase, and kind of the blessing that was of them having to take their lumps for that one season just to get the blessing that was Jamar Chase at the I believe it was the 4th overall pick or something like that. So sometimes it's definitely for the better of the long term. So who knows what we will see from the Tennessee Titans. I agree with you, Jason. I don't think they have much room for error here down the stretch. They're going to have to go on some sort of run. And in the AFC, I would imagine they're going to have, definitely they're going to have the Jags once or twice. I would even say the Colts with Gardner Minshew and kind of that bunch with JT and Zach Moss. They're even a tough team. Even any games in the division are always tough, Jason. You know that. Divisional games are just when you play a team twice, they know you better. When you're playing them year after year, it just tends to build up the rivalry as well. You want to play harder and beat them. And those games almost are like 4 points when you're playing those teams that are kind of fighting for the division crown. So, big time eye on both teams going down the stretch here because I feel like their season is kind of about to hit a pivotal stretch of these next few games. If they win or lose, could break make or break their seasons coming up here. So the Pittsburgh Steelers come away with the 20-16 victory. Jason, any final words before we get to the next segment?
No, let's move on.
All right, buddy. So I figured we kind of just throw this game into the picks. We just go right to our picks of the week, Jason, and we kind of I would figure one of us would draft the Bills Cincinnati game. So I figured we get into the picks segment right away, Jason. As always, if anybody's tuning in here tonight, Jason and I go back and forth, snake style drafting three of our favorite games of the week each. So 6 games total this week. There's a lot of good games again on the slate. That is the nature of the NFL. It is a good one on a week to week basis. Usually, it's a rare occasion when there's not a good slate of games in every window. Usually, it's when a lot of the good teams are on buys. Those are the weeks that suck when the Bills, KC, and Philly or something like that are on buy, and you're like, there's a lot of tough matchups that you're having to sit through. But Jason, I believe it is your honor, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think it's my turn. So, this week there's a lot of great games. I believe like every game in every window, or like one game in every window, is going to be must see TV, starting the early morning game in London, and then 1 o'clock slate, the 4 o'clock slate, and then the Sunday nighter. All four windows, must watch game in each of those windows this week. But the pick here for me is easy, and I'm going to go with the Miami Dolphins and the Kansas City Chiefs from Germany. I said London a few seconds ago, but it's actually in Germany this time. And I believe this is one of the first games that's ever been played in Germany. So I'm excited to see what happens in this game. It's really one of the most premier international matchups that we've ever gotten in the NFL. And I'm really excited to see, Tyreek Hill against the Kansas City Chiefs for the first time since he was traded. Obviously, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year, and Tyreek had a ton of success ever since he's been traded to the Dolphins. But it'll be interesting to see that matchup and how Miami stands up to Kansas City. And then for Kansas City, obviously they had a very disappointing game last week in Denver. Probably the most disappointing effort of the Mahomes era, I would say. I think at least offensively speaking. So really interested to see how they bounce back from that. And yeah, just two powerhouses going at it.
Yeah, Jason, excited for this one, buddy. Um, to be honest, Jason, this is going to be a tough one. This is 6:30. I'll remind you my time back here.
Yeah.
As maybe my fellow Canadians, anybody that's listening, CFL fans, the BC Lions are playing a playoff game the day before. I am definitely going to be having a few wobbly pops, you could say, at the game and making my way back over. I believe I'll be on the 11 o'clock ferry back home, so I'll probably be getting home around midnight. Definitely be feeling probably good. It is going to be a tough turnaround to see if I can. I definitely will be able to set the alarm and get out of bed and get to the couch. But the trick, Jason, is going to be able to keep my eyes open when I get on the couch. So I'm going to try my darndest to be able to watch this game. I'm not too sure if I am, but I think this is the game that I would be willing to stay up for because, like you alluded to, there is a game at I believe every slate at the 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and the Sunday night game, obviously with our game, excuse me, with good games at every slate. So, maybe I have to sacrifice the 10 o'clock good game that we'll talk about here in a few minutes for this morning game, my sleep. So we'll see how things are going, but I'll be honest, Jason. I know I'm gonna get on the couch. I'm gonna get nice and cozy. I'm gonna get the heat on, and it is gonna be a tough deal to keep my eyes open. But hopefully, maybe they're on Germany. They want to put on a show, and hopefully they're able to keep me entertained and keep me awake. And who knows? But I am definitely looking forward to this one, Jason, as well. I'm looking for a big time bounce back from the Kansas City Chiefs, like you mentioned. Probably the biggest. I would say almost like, and maybe no show is probably the unfair because of the flu game or whatever you want to call it that Mahomes was going to. I know a lot of people on Twitter were kind of saying they were kind of playing into that storyline a little bit too much on the broadcast of bringing it up time and time again of yes, we know Mahomes is sick, and people kind of do this a little bit more regularly now. And um it definitely was just a disappointing, and definitely you could see he wasn't the same Mahomes. I'm expecting a definitely a bounce back from the Chiefs and the Chiefs offense for them to be definitely a little bit ticked off coming into this one. Now the scary thing is who's on the other side and the firepower that they can hit with. Obviously, we saw that, Jason, firsthand when we played them with the Buffalo Bills, of the shootout that we could get in with. I believe it was 14-14, both teams scoring on four straight possessions, back and forth, back and forth. They can go toe to toe, and obviously the Kansas City or the Miami Dolphins scoring 70 early in the season, probably the best offense maybe in the NFL right as of now. For me, Jason, this game comes down to whoever wins this one is the best team. I know I said this a few weeks ago when the Miami Dolphins played. Maybe it was last weekend. Maybe I said the best team in the NFL, but I think whoever wins this game is the best team in the AFC, in my opinion. I know Bills fans might be a little bit kind of irritated to hear that, but I think it's just kind of I'm kind of speaking to right now, and I think if you're kind of realistic with yourself, the Bills aren't playing to the best of their standards. I feel like that's kind of just realistic. That's not unfair to stay in. I think Miami is playing to I know that they definitely have they lost to Philly, but I feel like that's not really a strike against them when you lose, and even the loss to us, right? I feel like that's not really a strike against them. Obviously, we have two losses that are kind of, and maybe even three losses if you kind of I know Jacksonville is a good team, but I feel like us going being favored into that game, rightfully so. You could even say maybe three kind of strikes against us of not being able to win games that we should have won. So I feel like this game is definitely the winner of this one is rightfully the king of the AFC as of now. Now, obviously, come the end of the season, going into playoffs, nobody's over the Bills in my opinion, but as of now, I can be the humble, fair minded NFL fan that I am as of now, I will say. But looking forward to this one, Jason, and hopefully I'm able to stay up, buddy, because it's going to be an early one over here on the West Coast. But anything else that comes to mind? I wish this game. I would think. Hopefully, we're not able to. Anyone's able to get knocked off before it happens, but hopefully, able to see Tyreek Hill return to Arrowhead. Obviously, I believe we're getting robbed of that because this would be a Kansas City home game, obviously, like you mentioned, going over to Germany for the first time. And, I guess kind of, backhanded kind of compliment to, it's not even a compliment to the Andy Reid. It's kind of more just at the Buffalo Bills organization. I believe both teams went over on Tuesday and did not go over and arrive on Friday when you play on a Sunday game, and took a few more days to get a little bit more acclimated to going overseas. So, both teams taking the right measures, I believe, and going a little bit earlier, being able to get their body clocks used to that time zone. I think that's a big key when you go over to across the pond, as they say, to play a football game. So, looking forward to this one, and hopefully, like I said, hopefully I'm able to stay up because this is going to be arguably it could be a game of the year, to be honest, Jason, type matchup. When you think of the offenses, I'm expecting an explosion from Mahomes and that offense just because of I believe what was it, was it 9 points that the Denver Broncos held the Kansas City Chiefs to last week?
I think so.
Absolutely unheard of in the Mahomes era. You could tell something was definitely up. Obviously, they alluded to it multiple times. The flu that was going around in the Mahomes household, obviously, his wife, I believe they mentioned, and then the daughter and other one got it as well and passed it on to Mahomes before game day. So um, I'm expecting big time bounce back. Not too sure if T Swift's going to be over there. I know the Chiefs numbers don't look so good when she's not in the house, but hopefully the Chiefs are able to survive without their biggest fan and biggest good luck charm. I would expect, though, like I said, Jason, jokes aside, Patty Mahomes, Travis Kelce to be themselves the best quarterback playmaker tandem in the NFL. I would expect Andy Reid and that bunch to be fired up, especially, I know it's not in Arrowhead, but they heard all that kind of talk, I would imagine, all offseason from Tyreek Hill on his podcast of, Tua has a strong arm too, and some of those kind of, I feel like this would, I guess, be the right term of the backhanded compliments from Tyreek Hill of, I love my time in Kansas City, but, and I love Patrick Mahomes, but definitely Patrick Mahomes is a petty mf'er. The guys that are the greats, they like MJ, the meme of, I took that personally. Obviously, Travis Kelce touched on it last year of when Jamar Chase mentioned Pat who and when they knocked off the Chiefs obviously the year before, and then after they won the Super Bowl, Pat, I believe, posted on Twitter of I believe some sort of remark of kind of at Jamar Chase again. So Pat remembers everything that you say, and I would imagine he's going to be fired up for this one. But I would expect that the Miami Dolphins offense will be up to the task unless they forget their game in Miami. But I'd expect the Cheetah to be able to run overseas as well, and probably just as fast over there. And I would expect Mike McDaniels to have quite the game plan ready for that Chiefs defense as well, because I think they're kind of the strength of the Kansas City Chiefs as of now as well. So, anything else on this matchup, Jason, before we move on?
No, but just expand on your point. This game could mean a lot down the line in terms of the standings. It really could be looking at a scenario where these are the top two teams in the NFC or the AFC at the end of this season. So this could be a huge game for that. I mean, there's other teams in the mix like Jacksonville and Baltimore right now. Obviously, the Bills are a game back, but I think this game could be huge for the standings. And I'm really interested to see how that Chiefs defense does against that Miami offense, because the Chiefs defense deserves a lot of credit for how they played so far this year.
Yes, they have, Jason. So, any final words, buddy, before I go with my pick?
Nope, you go ahead.
All right, my man. I was gonna go with the Bills pick, but I figured we'll just save that maybe for whoever picks last. I guess that maybe me or whoever picks last, anyways. But I will go with the 10 o'clock slate. I'll go within order here of the Seattle Seahawks at the Baltimore Ravens, the 5-2 Seattle Seahawks at the 6-2 Baltimore Ravens. I think this is another big game for each team to add to their resume in terms of just a kind of victory that they can hang their hat on of, we beat this team, and kind of it's a playoff caliber team, a strong team, a like I said, a win that you can hang your hat on and kind of build upon going down the stretch. Obviously, we saw the Seattle Seahawks trade for Leonard Williams, a second and a fifth round pick, I believe they traded for. Not too sure how much what your opinion on it was, Jason. I didn't really have the biggest opinion. I have a work colleague that I go back and forth with that's a big NFL fan. He's a Seahawks fan as well, and he was kind of I wouldn't say he was hyped up, but he was definitely he liked the addition, and I didn't not like the addition, but I mentioned to him I thought maybe a second and a fifth was maybe a little bit much because of it's pretty much a 1 year rental if you look at the contract, right? Leonard Williams is on an expiring contract. Obviously, the Bills just sent a second round pick, I believe it was, or third round pick, I guess, for Rasul Douglas, but Rasul Douglas is under contract for another season. You get Leonard Williams for essentially, what is it, 8 games here down the stretch, and hopefully a playoff run. But Seattle obviously could shock me, but I would imagine Seattle's probably they got this 8 game stretch and then probably a one and done in the playoffs too. If we're kind of being perfectly honest, Jason, calling a spade a spade. Like I said, Seattle can obviously shock me and prove me wrong, but I think there's probably another maybe 3 or 4 teams that I would slide ahead of Seattle that they have to go through before I would slide them into a contender in the NFC. But who knows what comes in the coming weeks here, and they can definitely prove me wrong, like I said. But the addition I think is a good one for that defense, and I think that's why, like I said, I didn't not like the addition. I just think it was a steep asking price considering they have been have been having somewhat of decent success here in the last few years of drafting, offensively and defensively. Whether it's late and early, and in kind of receivers, running backs, obviously Charbonneau, Kenneth Walker, JSN, and DK Metcalf, and then obviously I believe it's their offensive tackle Charles Cross. And some of the guys on defense, obviously, I believe it was Kobe Bryant, who's one of their contributors. And a few other corners, obviously, that contribute to them on a consistent basis. So they've been hitting, and that's kind of why I kind of made that comment. So I was curious to see how it's going to pay off, and I think it will pay off because of their back end and how that's kind of their strength of their defense, as well as who's in front, and letting Bobby Wagner be a little bit more clean in the middle there, and letting him just get to a little bit more plays and be a playmaker that he is, or that he was already being this season. So I think it is a good addition, but I just don't know if it puts them over the top in the NFC. And I think this win could be a nice confidence booster to get the ball rolling, and get this snowball building up into a bigger avalanche going down the stretch. So who knows what will Seattle be? I think they're going to be a competitive team, but I think this is going to be an intriguing one to watch. And Jason, I'm going to be honest. If I'm able to stay up for that Kansas City game until at least halftime, I'm going to be out like a light for this game and not make any. I probably won't make it past the first quarter if I'm going to be completely honest. So one of these early games is definitely getting sacrificed. I'll be completely honest, but excited to catch the highlights and a little bit of the intrigue on the debate online after the game. So, anything that excites you about this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the interesting thing with Seattle is the way that they've rebuilt this defense over the last couple of years. I mean, a couple of years ago, it was a pretty blank cupboard that they had to work with there, but they've slowly added pieces to the back end. Tyreek Woolen and Weatherspoon, I think he's been a really great rookie for them this year. Jamal Adams getting back in the fold after all the injuries he's had, and then you add Leonard Williams to the front seven here, and I think that isn't Bobby Wagner back with the team as well? So, like, just a weirdly constructed defense, but it's working the last several weeks of the season. I mean, that game against the Giants a few weeks ago, didn't they have like 10 sacks or something like that? I know it was against the Giants, but, there are a defense that is capable of putting up numbers and being a lot more competitive than a lot of people thought going into the season. And on the offensive side, they have as good of weapons as most teams in the NFL, really better than most teams in the NFL when you look at their top three receivers and the running backs that they have. So I think it really comes down to the offensive line and Geno Smith. And Geno Smith, I mean, he's a weird quarterback because he can make some of the most amazing throws I've seen in the NFL this year, but he also just struggles with just basic consistency. And I think that he's really going to sink or swim this team the rest of the season. And it will be an interesting matchup with Baltimore.
Absolutely. I guess I didn't really touch on that. Is Geno Smith? That's the other thing that I kind of I joked on him. I kind of I said maybe they should have traded a second round pick for a quarterback instead. But and that's kind of the other point I made as well. Is I said Seattle's probably going to finish around maybe the 20th selection in the draft. Maybe they use that second round pick to trade up a little bit higher to get them a quarterback because I think Geno is going to get you a competitive team, but I just don't know if he's going to excuse me, Jason, put you over the top when it comes to winning you it all. Like I said, it happens. There's the Trent Dilfers of the world, the Joe Flacco's of the world, the Eli Mannings of the world, depending on how you feel about him. A lot of quarterbacks that the Nick Foles of the world that can fall into Super Bowls at any time. So it happens, but I'm just not too sure if he's the one. Obviously, I'm biased, Jason. I wanted Nathan to sign, obviously, Kid Canada, Nathan Rourke, to sign in Seattle. I thought that would have been the perfect fit for him. Go back up Geno Smith. I believe there was some interest, but I believe they didn't even offer him a contract. So it was unfortunate, but not to get too much off topic. Excited to see how this kind of game plays out because it should be a good back and forth one. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if it's maybe a little bit on the disappointing side in terms of entertainment, and maybe it's a low scoring. Maybe Lamar Jackson's not able to get any loose, and maybe the Seattle Seahawks aren't able to have anything going offensively. Both defenses are stingy defenses, so who knows how this one will turn out? But I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's a low scoring. Whoever has the ball last maybe kicks a game-winning field goal. Maybe it's a Justin Tucker field goal. We've heard that one before from Ravens side of things. So, anything else, Jason, that you might want to mention before we move on to my second selection?
Yeah, I've been really impressed by the Ravens so far this year. I think that they've really been a team that's been one of the more consistent teams in the NFL, with the exception of that loss against Pittsburgh. And I forget who their other losses against, but I think overall they've been very strong this season. I think Lamar has been very good despite some of his supporting cast being injured at times this year. So I think that they have a lot of good stuff going. Obviously, they have a great defense as well. So excited to see how this Seattle offense matches up against that Baltimore defense on Sunday.
Obviously, Jason, it could change because of how he plays, but I honestly think that Lamar Jackson, as of now, between him and maybe I wouldn't even say Tyreek Hill, but I think Lamar might even be in a league of his own, honestly, because of you know Josh has a good defense and a stable foundation around him. Stephon Diggs, Lamar Jackson really doesn't have a lot of great talent. Obviously, you have Mark Andrews. I really feel like in terms of the most valuable player, if that's what the award is that the NFL wants to have, if you take Lamar Jackson off the Baltimore Ravens, I'm not too sure if they have many wins. I would feel like they're probably a 5 or 6 win ball club if you take Lamar Jackson off that team. So I really think obviously his play could maybe hurt his chances of winning the MVP. Personally, like I mentioned last week, Jason, I have Tyreek Hill, Lamar Jackson in my MVP conversation, leading the races of those two, 1 and 2, up at the top of my conversation personally. And I expect Lamar and Tyreek to continue to lead the charge in that conversation. So, anything else, Jason, before I hit my second pick?
No, I think that's it for me.
All right, my man. I wasn't continue to go in order, but maybe I will leave you this one, and I will go with one that's off the board. I'll embrace the chaos for the second pick, Jason, because this is a team and a quarterback that I grew a little bit fonder for this offseason and was rooting for, and their season took a turn for the worst last week with obviously Kirk Cousins going down with the Achilles injury out for the season. The 35-year-old quarterback not a great. Obviously, we had a 39-year-old quarterback in Aaron Rodgers tears Achilles, prior in the year on opening night. Uh, not a good sign. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Kirk Cousins. The quarterback documentary kind of grew his fan or my fandom for him a little bit more. Just kind of he kind of chiseled up in my heart, Jason, and kind of snagged a little bit of a spot in my heart because of just the kind of the father person, kind of the dad that he was, the man he was off the field, and kind of just the way he approached things, and kind of just. I know it's maybe a little bit quirky and dorky to some people, but I really feel like it's just kind of genuine. Of that's who Kirk Cousins is, and he's really he embraces of being a professional quarterback. He loves the preparation side of things of preparing for teams and stuff like that. And I believe one of the quotes in there of you people. I think he said like people used to knock me about kind of being a nerd in high school of kind of scoring high on tests and all that sort of things. And he's like, scoring high on tests helped me so much in the NFL because that's what I'm doing on a weekly basis. Is usually I'm kind of writing my cheat sheet during the week of kind of that preparation, and then when I get on to Sunday, that's the test of can I answer the questions correctly of kind of what I've seen throughout the week and all that sort of thing. So just really cool to hear from that sort of thing of the kind of the cerebral mind of Kirk Cousins, and that's why I grew a little bit more of a fandom of Kirk Cousins because prior to this, Jason, obviously we kind of were familiar with each other, but not really communicated on a weekly basis and really kind of heard each other's opinions. I was kind of a little bit harder on Kirk Cousins, and one of my good buddies was kind of, he tends to, be on the kind of, short end of things for Minnesota. A lot of times he would score, maybe high 20s, low 30s for points per game for the Minnesota Vikings, and their defense wasn't able to get them a stop or something like that. So my opinion has kind of changed throughout the years on Kirk Cousins, and it's grown even more going into this season. So just unfortunate for him to go down like that and miss the rest of the season. They were obviously turning their season around, Jason. They are now 4-4 going to this matchup this weekend against the Atlanta Falcons that are also 4-4 quietly, kind of staying competitive. And why I'm intrigued about this one, Jason, is obviously I'm not too sure if you know about my fandom for Taylor Heineke as well. I am a big Taylor Heineke, Old Dominion. Like I mentioned about so bad of me, Jason. Chicago Bears quarterback from last week, but I forget his D2 his college, Shepherd University. I also forget his name, which is bad, but Shepherd University
Tyson
came back.
Bagent.
Tyson Bagent, thank you. I like those small school guys. Taylor Heineke was on his sister's couch like a few weeks before he got the call or something like that to go back to the NFL. Absolute unbelievable story. He goes on the Pat McAfee show from time to time, Jason. He's a dude's dude. He's just such a good dude. He's like like I mentioned, he was a big reason why Sam Howell got his opportunity. He was obviously starting down the stretch for the Washington Redskins last year. He mentioned to Ron Rivera, hey, you have this guy in Sam Howell that's a young dude. You should take a look at him, and kind of got the ball rolling of Sam Howell getting that last start to end the year. So just a really good teammate, a really good dude. And I really root for those guys that are young, kind of underdogs that are, Old Dominion, Jason. Did you even heard about that before? You probably heard of, when he gets introduced on Sunday Night Football and he says, Old Dominion. I'm Taylor Heineke, Old Dominion. So it's like it's just it's out of this world, and kind of you can't help but root for them personally, especially because he plays quarterback and just knowing how hard it is, and kind of can't help but root for him. And then if you look back to Minnesota, obviously they trade for Josh Dobbs, the Arizona Cardinals former quarterback. I would imagine that probably signals towards Kyler Murray. His return would be, on the horizon here in the coming weeks, coming games. I'm not too sure if it's going to be Sunday or not. I haven't really paid too much attention on the practice reports or anything like that if he's going to be going this Sunday. But interested to see Josh Dobbs. It kind of been, I know Arizona had been having the best season, but an intriguing type of quarterback because of, pretty much the dumpster fire that Arizona was coming into the season. They knew that they were kind of tanking for a potential quarterback that, they didn't have their quarterback coming into the year. They signed Josh Dobbs off I don't know if it was the street, but off maybe another team. I believe it was like a week or two coming into the season. So, I think I was somewhat impressed from what his performance was, considering the circumstances that he was dropped into, being on the roster that wasn't maybe the strongest. And just I think overall he had been showing fairly well for himself. So I'm intrigued about this matchup from both the quarterback side of things, as well as both teams trying to fight for the fifth win. So is there anything that jumps out to you in terms of this matchup, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback off your point, the quarterbacks is really what the story is with this game. Obviously, Jaren Hall making his first career NFL start at quarterback, so always interesting when that happens. And then Heineke is one of these guys. He's almost like a Ryan Fitzpatrick type that no matter where he goes, he's always going to end up starting some games during that season. It's kind of like a curse or a blessing, if you will. But I think at the end of the day, two teams that are 4-4, still very much in the midst of the NFC playoff race, and it should be interesting to see how it turns out.
Taylor Heineke, Ryan Fitzpatrick for a Taylor Heineke comparison is a perfect comparison. Taylor Heineke can have the same career as Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's going to go on to be a legend. Hopefully that means he has a stop in Buffalo somewhere along the way. I would love for him to back up Josh Allen for a lot of years to come. I think that would be a great tandem. But that being said, Jason, I think that's not my job. We'll leave that to Brandon Bean to go sign QB2. So I don't have anything final thoughts, Jason. I will send it back over to you for picks 2 and 3 for you, my friend.
All right, so yeah, a couple of really good games still left for me, and we're gonna leave the Bills game to the end. You said, right?
Might as well. I figured.
Yeah, for
We'll
sure.
probably.
Yeah, for sure. So the next one I'm going to go with is the Monday Nighter between the Los Angeles Chargers and the New York Jets. So, the Jets are just, like I mentioned last week, they're just kind of hanging around. They're making life difficult for everybody that they play. You look Kansas City, Buffalo, Philly, who they beat. I just think that they've made other teams just really struggle this year offensively, and they're doing just enough to keep in these games offensively. Last week was very ugly against the New York Giants, but I mean, it was just one of those games, and they found a way, and they got their fourth win of the season. They're still hanging around in that wild card hunt, and they have the same amount of losses as the Bills do right now. And currently, because they won that week one matchup, they have the tiebreaker over the Bills. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how Justin Herbert plays against this Jets defense. He's the next great quarterback to take a crack at, trying to solve this Jets defense. Nobody's really been able to do it so far this year. So I'm really excited about this matchup from that perspective. And then, the Chargers defense kind of got back on track against Tyson Bagent last week against the Chicago Bears. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they play against Zach Wilson on Monday night. So pretty good primetime game here.
Jason, you know what's absolutely insane? They almost beat the Kansas City Chiefs as well. They could be 5-2, which is absolutely insane because Aaron Rodgers lasted 4 snaps, man. The Jets are way too scary right now. I don't love it considering Aaron Rodgers is. If Aaron Rodgers is able to make a comeback and he's throwing, Jason, it's absolutely insane. I know this year's probably unlikely considering, I feel like the risk reward margin is probably just too. I feel like you just he's 39. I feel like just even if he's able to recover by, let's say December or something like that, and maybe he's able to make a return towards the late end of the regular season, I feel like you just don't do that if you're the New York Jets. If
Yeah.
you really, if you're kind of mortgaging the future of Aaron Rodgers, if you want the last little bit of Aaron Rodgers, you go out there and trot him on the field and he blows a knee or something like that. Like God forbid he does like Tre'Davious White, like if you're kind of compensating for one area, you're not tend to re-injure the same area. You tend to do something else because you're overcompensating, and it ends up kind of biting you in the backside. I feel like at 39, you just don't want to do that. That's why Tom Brady lasted so long. He didn't have any bad injuries towards the backside of his career. He tore his ACL in what 20 or like the 2000, maybe even 2007 or something like that.
Yeah.
Could have been even that far back. That's how old we're getting, Jason, which is crazy to think. I was going to say 2010, but it's probably 2007, I would think. That
2008, the year after they went undefeated. Yeah.
Yeah, 2008, you're correct. Which is crazy, Jason. That's 16 years ago, man. Oh my goodness. Jesus. So I just feel like that's probably not something they want to do. And they're still gonna, I feel like, be a pain in the side of the anybody in the AFC East and the anybody in the AFC. I feel like that, like you mentioned, Justin Herbert being the next great quarterback to crack this defense. Nobody solved the code yet. I don't expect Justin Herbert to solve the code yet. I expect the Chargers to win. I expect it to be a low scoring game, like I mentioned, the Baltimore game being it kind of a slug it out kind of game. Justin Herbert as well dealing with the finger injury. He hasn't really looked himself, as well as the Chargers dealing with no Mike Williams for the season, kind of finding their second option outside of Keenan Allen. I believe Jared Everett as well missed the game versus Chicago Bears last weekend. So they're kind of finding their way through things and kind of battling through injuries offensively. So I would expect this game to be a little bit of a slug it out type game and a hard one. Well earned 2 points for whoever wins. I think the Chargers will come out, but you never know with the Chargers, honestly, Jason, because 3-4. Who would have thought that?
Yeah.
Especially me. I picked the Chargers to obviously make the playoffs coming into the year. Like we said about the Tennessee Titans, they get to 5 or 6 losses. Their margin for error here down the stretch for the Chargers is another 2 games tops. They're obviously they're not getting close to winning the division, so they're gonna have to settle for a wild card spot come the playoff time. And if they if you get to 6 or 7 losses, I really feel like you're really putting the pressure on of 11-7 is probably going to get you in the playoffs, but if you're 11-7 and have lost some of these key games too, especially these early season games in the AFC, a la the Bills, unfortunately, I know it's kind of it's almost scary talking about things like this, but the Bills having 3 losses in the AFC, early losses can be what kills you come the back half of the year of I wish we would have won this game and I wish we would have won that game and always happens from the Bill side of things for hosting the home field advantage throughout the playoffs of I wish we would have won this game and we would have been the first seed in the playoffs, and I wish we would have won this game and we would have been the first seed in the playoffs, but it tends on hurting us come the end of the season. So if you're the Chargers, you need to round into form, and it's tough because your quarterback's going through an injury and one on his hands. When you're a quarterback, I feel like that's one of it's not a tough area when it's not specifically on the throwing hand, but it's just annoying, right? Because we saw obviously he took the an under center snap. I believe he fumbled it. I think they went directly back into shotgun. Obviously, they're more a predominant shotgun run team, but I feel like Austin Eckler can thrive a little bit more from that under center type running game. So it's unfortunate when you're able to unable to go into that. So curious to see how they're able to kind of handle the back half of their season here, because the margin for error will be very little for the Chargers going forward, and it'll start with the New York Jets, who will definitely be able to pull off a shocker. We've seen them pull off them multiple times here this season. So looking forward to this one, Jason. I will throw it back to you for your third and final pick, unless you have any final thoughts.
Yeah, just one crazy thing about this game is that the Jets have a better record than the Chargers right now. So, I mean, I wouldn't even call it an upset if the Jets win this game on Monday night. So, really, very much looking forward to that game. And with my next pick, I'm going with a game that I'm surprised hasn't been picked yet. I'm going with the Cowboys at the Eagles on at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. And I think at the end of the day, in this game, the Cowboys just need to show you a little bit more fight than they have the previous couple of years against the Eagles. It really feels like the Eagles are kind of running away with this division again this year. Obviously, only the one loss on the season to those New York Jets. So I think at the end of the day, they need to make a statement here and come out, and Dak Prescott has to play well in a game like this to kind of give them confidence. And maybe they won't win the division at the end of the day, but it would give them a confidence for a future playoff matchup against Philadelphia, which they likely would have to run through in order to win the NFC. So I think at the end of the day, it's going to be interesting to see how this matchup plays out. Two of the NFC's better teams.
Yeah, you said it perfectly, Jason. I think just be competitive and ultimately give yourself an opportunity to win the game. If you're Dak Prescott, no kind of risky throws. Make sure you're taking care of the ball. Let Tony Pollard in that run game kind of set up some throws down the field and in the middle of towards the middle of the field for you. Obviously, that Philadelphia Eagles defense is no joke, and kind of you need to make sure you pick your spots and make sure you don't test them too much because they have some playmakers on their back end. They have some obviously a big time playmakers up front. They're able to put some pressure on you. Obviously, maybe able to make you, double clutch and all that sort of thing. Make you double, who's coming, who's not. So definitely a stiff test here for the Dallas Cowboys. I would expect them to be up for this game because it is a divisional game. It is the Philadelphia Eagles. Ultimately, Jason, I am going to go with the Eagles. Just I think that's kind of the smart money, the smart pick. But give me a little bit of confidence if you're kind of looking down the road for a potential playoff matchup and or just any sort of confidence for the Dallas Cowboys going into the playoffs because I think it's kind of year after year the Dallas Cowboys you just have question marks of they're going to be a good team but they just tend to fall apart come playoff time and I feel like Dak Prescott is kind of, it's time to put up or shut up in terms of if you're going to get the Cowboys over the hump and kind of, win some playoff games and maybe get them to an NFC championship and win a potential NFC championship and give, the Cowboys back to their glory days of, writing checks that Jerry Jones could cash. And I feel like it hasn't been like that in a long time. So looking for them to just be competitive. I know that's kind of, it maybe sounds silly and just, I feel like that's just the silver lining for them this game of maybe they lose the game, but they can hang their hat on this come playoff time of we were right there, and maybe it's the playoff game that's most important. Of maybe they knocked them off come playoff time, and they can go back of the hard times come this game of we were right there, and those 4 or 5 plays if they go our way. This game, we can beat them this game, and they have that much more confidence of we hung with them, we played with them, we can beat these guys, and it's our turn this time. So looking for the Cowboys to just put up a good show, and I think they will because of the kind of the stakes on the line, the divisional, obviously the NFC East rivalry here on the line of these two teams being the two top tier teams in this division of them going back and forth for I would imagine years to come, and just kind of being built to go head to head. So excited for this one, Jason. I would expect I'll be up and well rested by 1 o'clock by this time by kickoff. So anything else, Jason, that comes to mind when talking about these two games?
Yeah, for the Cowboys, again, I think that on the other side of the ball, on defense, I mean, we always talk about how great this defense is. Well, here's your big test against, a great quarterback in Jalen Hurts. And the Eagles have had a weird season. It feels like they're still trying to figure things out. But at the end of the day, they're still 7-1 with the best record in the NFL. So I'm excited to see ultimately who comes out on the top of this NFC East matchup. But I think at the end of the day, it'll be a good one, and the Cowboys will bring their A game, like you said.
Yeah, the Eagles keep stacking them up, right? They don't ask how, they ask how many come the end of the season. So ultimately, yeah, they definitely have been not looking like the Eagles that we saw down the stretch and in the playoffs last year. But I think kind of unfortunately what's been the Achilles heel of the Bills if they haven't been able to do that enough is just getting out with a win and surviving and kind of getting on to the next week. And I think that's the kind of the Eagles championship pedigree. I know they haven't won necessarily with this kind of foundation. I know some of those guys, Lane Johnson, obviously Kelsey, some of those guys on defense were a part of that championship, but some of those guys on offense, obviously AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, uh, Jalen, obviously some of those guys, they really are kind of learning that championship caliber kind of pedigree of just producing and kind of getting out of there week in, week out with a win. And who really cares about how it looks come the end of the season because nobody can remember about a week 3 victory that you got out with a 3-point victory because ultimately it's a win in the win column and that means you still survived in advance and you got to the end of the season with I would imagine they're going to finish with, especially with the 49ers kind of, struggling here in recent weeks, Jason. And I guess maybe if there's anything else, is there anything else that you want to mention on this game, Jason?
No, you go ahead.
Okay, maybe a transition here before we pick the last game, but into the 49ers, Jason, of them struggling. Obviously, we've seen them bring in the addition there on their bye week. They bring in Chase Young from the Washington Redskins, loading up that defensive line even more with, Armstead up there. Obviously, reuniting the Ohio State teammates, I believe, in Bosa and Chase Young now. That defense, Jason, is absolutely a nightmare and scary to think about. Considering the linebackers behind them, Fred Warner, some of those guys in the secondary, Ufunga and stuff like that, and they're going to be a very fast and physical team to deal with. And the NFC is definitely going to be. I feel like defensively, the NFC is definitely up there in terms of the kind of. I feel like on the AFC, it's more maybe towards the offensive side of things, and defensively on the NFC side of things. So excited for this one, and excited to see how it plays out. Obviously, like I mentioned, the 49ers on the bye week this week, and the Niners and or the Cowboys and Eagles get to slug it out for the top dog in the AFC NFC this week. So anything else, Jason, before we go with our third? We'll say our third and final pick this week.
Yeah, just to touch on the 49ers Chase Young edition, I think that the 49ers, they look like they kind of needed it after the 3 straight losses that they've had. They almost look like they need a shot in the arm. And we saw that defense against Cincinnati last week, and we'll get into the Bengals, but the Bengals seemed like they moved up and down the field on them at relative ease. So the Chase Young edition could be huge for the 49ers coming down the stretch.
Absolutely, Jason. So let's get into it, buddy. The third and final pick tonight, and we'll kind of close this all into one segment and kind of tie this into Bills talk tonight before we get out of here, folks. So anybody else is tuning in, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you guys are joining the show tonight. It'd be greatly appreciated. Make sure you guys get over there to Jason's channel over at Hossy's Title on YouTube as well as Twitter. Like I mentioned, all that support is greatly appreciated on both of our channels. So as we get into this game, Jason, a little bit of housekeeping on the Buffalo Bills side of things before we get into the matchup specifically. We obviously saw the trade deadline come Tuesday night, Halloween. Jason, I guess we didn't talk about it. You have a good Halloween. Are you able to hand out candy to any trick-or-treaters or what?
Well, actually, the restaurant that I worked at, I actually worked that night. So my girlfriend stayed home and handed out candy. But to be honest, I'm not a huge Halloween person. So, I actually stopped going out for trick or treating when I was in like grade 3. So, I mean,
No way.
I'm kind of a party pooper when it comes to Halloween. But it's fun for everybody else.
So you're the Grinch, I guess, of Halloween, but free candy, Jason. That was the best part, man. I used to load up the pillowcases, man. Oh my God, and have them gone by the weekend or whatever. I used to eat too much of the Halloween candy, that's for sure. But the trade deadline, back to that, the Buffalo Bills, obviously they only traded for the one. Obviously, I mentioned earlier, Rasul Douglas from the Green Bay Packers coming over, the cornerback for I believe it was a third round pick, and we received Rasul Douglas and a fifth round pick. So we still retain 10 picks, Jason. I'm not too sure if you know that. Obviously, next year's draft. So still have a lot of picks, a lot of things to trade ammo. Hopefully next year, able to shake and bake and make some moves at the board for Brandon Bean. But like the addition, Jason, obviously we were hearing on Twitter, social media of kind of the ties to Jalen Johnson, the Chicago Bears cornerback. A little bit of I believe it is Deontay Johnson, I believe, or the Carolina Panthers cornerback, Deontay, I forget his name, was a highly drafted player as well, kind of tied to the Bills, obviously with their Carolina ties. I believe it's Dante Jackson, if I'm not Deontay Johnson. I believe it's Deontay Jackson, cornerback for the Carolina Panthers, was tied to the Buffalo Bills. Rasul Douglas had not been a name that would kind of been out there on the trade market. And if you listen to his press conference with the Bills, Jason, he had said he had got the phone call at 3 o'clock Green Bay time, which is obviously Eastern Standard Time. The trade deadline, I believe, is at 4 o'clock. So he was traded an hour before the trade deadline. Obviously, there was clips going around on social media of him kind of the impact in the locker room. A lot of guys being shocked and kind of sad. He mentioned as well in the press conference that he had with the Bills today of, he had some emotional moments with a few teammates one at the facility of, it was an off day on Tuesday when he got traded. A bunch of teammates came into the facility. He had some emotional moments with them at the facility, as well as going over to a few teammates' houses. So a big guy as far as the locker room culture. And then I believe, Jason, there was a stat going around, is he's tied for the most interceptions in the NFL since, I believe it's 2021, with 10 interceptions since then. So the guy's a ball hawk. I believe he's a big emphasis in a zone heavy scheme. So he fits into the defense quite well. And Jason, obviously the clip's been going around today. I was quite familiar with it. I remember the rivalry quite well because I didn't really remember with Josh Allen of, the F you suck. I remember it more so after the Stephon Diggs touchdown, Jason. I'm not too sure if you remember, but Rasul Douglas was a little bit more kind of, he kind of tackled Stephon Diggs after he was in the end zone and kind of did a somersault, and Rasul Douglas kind of escorted him out of bounds a little bit more. They kind of got in each other's faces, and kind of that's when Josh Allen came down the field and got in his face. You can see it on I think it's the Bills version of, because that's the NFL Films version, I believe, of the Josh Allen clip when he's kind of cursing him out. Or it's the top 100 film is when he's kind of cursing Rasul Douglas out. If you go to the Buffalo Bills clip, they have the full 9-minute version. I believe that's when it's on there. Steph and them kind of getting in his face. Gabe and Josh kind of separate the two, and then Josh kind of gives it to him a little bit more. But the rivalry, and kind of Rasul touched on it as well. As soon as he walked in the door, Josh Allen and him were able to have a joke about it, a nice conversation. And it was, the past was in the past, and kind of they embraced of, we both enjoy that type of competitiveness on that's what they want on their team. And it would definitely brought the best outside of them. And that wasn't the first addition. Obviously, Jason, we didn't trade for these other two. Obviously, we brought in Linval Joseph, defensive tackle, former Philadelphia Eagle, journeyman, Minnesota. I remember him as a Minnesota Viking, but as well a former guy that as well had kind of a little bit of a history with the Buffalo Bills, Jason. Leonard Fournette, a former Jacksonville Jaguar that had a little bit of a skirmish with current Buffalo Bill Shaq Lawson. I don't remember if you remember that, Jason. That was a nice heated game. I love that. Was one of my best memories as a Bills fan. A young Josh Allen being able to do that to Jalen Ramsey, of kind of, Jalen Ramsey called him trash, I believe, before that game. Josh Allen had one of the most remarkable touchdowns, and that was the moment that I was like, that I guess the next moment was the Dallas Cowboys one where he had the quarterback sneak on the 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 where he kind of fumbled the snap and was able to go for it. I was like, hey, we might have something now. That game when he threw the touchdown pass to Robert Foster, NFL fans might be asking, who's Robert Foster, an undrafted guy from Alabama that Josh Allen turned into almost a 1,000-yard receiver and almost gave a lengthy career. I don't think he's in the NFL anymore, but I believe he kind of gave him a chance. I think it was with the 49ers the following year, and then kind of fizzled out a few seasons after. Robert Foster on that, I want to say it was like a 50-yard touchdown, had two guys in his face, some guy that absolutely clobbered him as he threw it, absolutely on a rope, 40 or 50 yards down the field to Robert Foster, who'd been doing a crossing route, ends up scoring a touchdown. I was like, oh my goodness, we might have something on our hands here. And just end up turning into a heated game, like I mentioned about the Fournette and Shaq Lawson fight down in the red zone later in the game. That turned out to be a nice one because the Bills won. We were able to, like I mentioned, stick the birds up into the Jaguars' face and say, suck it. But we were able to bring in Leonard Fournette. And I was a little bit confused about this one, Jason, because I've been saying, give the ball more to James Cook, and I don't want to see more carries go away from James Cook. I don't think that's the case in this signing by any means. I think it's more so insurance because I think I like what I've seen from Latavius Murray as well, and I think the Bills have as well. I think this may be a little bit concerning for Damian Harris and maybe his neck injury being a little bit more serious than maybe anticipated. Maybe he's not feeling as comfortable to return after the IR. I believe he can return after 4 weeks if you're placed on it. Maybe he's leaning towards maybe a full season on IR. Maybe it's a serious neck injury that maybe he's leaning towards a surgery or something like that. Maybe the Bills want to bring him in for just extra precaution, just in case. Latavius Murray. Obviously, it's been quite documented that he's the oldest current running back in the NFL. So you never know if he's maybe able to break down on a short yardage carry here or there. So I feel like this Leonard Fournette carry or addition is kind of more so just insurance for down the stretch of maybe we see playoff Lenny, I believe is what his nickname is, down the stretch for the Buffalo Bills. So, Jason, anything to mention about the additions before we get specifically onto the matchup this week?
Yeah, I really like the Rasul Douglas edition. I thought that for the amount that they paid, I really don't think a third round pick is that valuable. I mean, a lot of times you can get a starter with that, but I think the fact that they got a fifth round pick back in return, I don't think that was a bad trade at all for the Bills. And I think that could be more about the Bills moving forward into next year as well, with him being under contract. So I'm excited to see what Rasul Douglas does in Buffalo, like you mentioned, more of a zone corner, so he fits the scheme from that perspective. So I'm excited to see how he does in Buffalo. And then the Leonard Fournette thing, I'm interested to see, how Latavius Murray does down the stretch here. I mean, if he keeps on getting like stuffed in these 1 yard scenarios, I mean, they're putting him in bad situations at times because, those shotgun runs from the goal line just haven't been that successful. And I really don't love those play calls like we were talking about the other week. But I think at the end of the day, a lot depends on how Latavius Murray plays down the stretch for Leonard Fournette's potential play time with the Bills.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be an underrated one, Jason. But I like the Lenville Joseph one. I believe he's 6'3", 330 pounds. A guy that's a true one-tech defensive tackle. Jordan Phillips is, I believe, around 330 pounds. Obviously, we have Tim Settle down there and Puna Ford, but I think Puna Ford is kind of that in betweener because he's so short. I believe Puna Ford's only like a 5'9" or 5'10", 300 pounder. So he's kind of more of a bowling ball type guy. Usually tries to use his leverage. He's not really as effective as Daquan Jones was as at that one tech defensive tackle. For anybody that's tuning in that's maybe not familiar with the one tech defensive tackle, kind of that terminology, that one tech defensive tackle more often than not is that guy that's getting double teamed between. He's kind of lining up between the center and one of the offensive guard positions, whether it's a left guard or right guard. Usually he's the guy that's kind of eating the double teams and being that guy that's doing all the dirty work. Usually he's not a high sack guy. Usually he's kind of, like I mentioned, doing a lot of the dirty work, eating those double teams so the linebackers can flow. Those guys on the outside can get their one-on-ones. Ed Oliver, who's our three-tech defensive tackle, can get one-on-one. So I think bringing in Lenville Joseph, 330 pounds. He was with the Philadelphia Eagles last year, went to the Super Bowl, was able to give them some valuable snaps down the stretch. There was some clips going around from, Baldine and a few of the other guys on Twitter that are the film junkies of, him kind of looking to. One of them was pretty impressive, Jason. It was one of them that he was running down a running back at his age. I believe he's 35, which is not great at his age, right? Because of you don't want to rely on a 35-year-old veteran, but if he's able to, give us 15 to 20 snaps on a weekly basis of come in, eat a double team up, let Terrell Bernard, Dorian Williams, or Dotson come in and just be clean. You're doing your job. I don't care about any sacks, and just let everybody else on the D line continue to eat. So like the additions, and I think they're good overall. Added depth for the Buffalo Bills going down the stretch, and I think well needed depth as well. So getting into the game, Jason, the Buffalo Bills travel to the Cincinnati Bengals. All storylines, obviously. Personally, Jason, I would have probably liked the NFL to I'm not too sure if this is a controversy take, but I would have maybe liked the NFL to maybe play this game in Buffalo rather than Cincinnati. I just feel like, um, I feel like DeMar would never kind of admit this, but I feel like maybe just putting him back into that situation of having to go to that stadium. I know he's going to do it anyways. I'm not too sure if he's going to be even active come Sunday, but I feel like maybe just being at home. I feel like I know it's you're playing Cincinnati still, Jason. I know it's probably a small thing and a silly thing, but just like he died on that field that they're playing on Sunday, right? So I feel like that's just um a little bit of an uneasy thing, and I think the NFL has done a good job of kind of not really trying to upplay that storyline so much of kind of that Damar Hamlin situation. I know it was kind of being kind of shoved down our throats in the offseason a little bit. I think a little bit too much of kind of just the kid, and kind of people started to he's fake and all that sort of thing, and um the NFL's done a good job this week of not really tying into that storyline. They've kind of really kept it low key and kind of just continue to say it's a tremendous achievement for what Damar Hamlin's been able to do and recover so fast. So glad that it's been hush hush, and I really hope that they kind of continue to do that. And like I mentioned, just a small thing. I just really hope that they kind of play this game in Buffalo. But looking forward to this one on the road, Jason. I think it's going to be a good one because both teams are going to be fired up. Both teams are going to be playing with urgency. Obviously, the Buffalo Bills owe the Cincinnati Bengals a little bit, Jason. They lost both games last year. Obviously, the one in the regular season didn't last too long with the injury, and then they got their excuse my language, their ass is handed to them in the playoffs. If we kind of be
Yeah.
honest with ourselves, right, Jason? Running the ball, passing the ball, weren't able to stop the Cincinnati Bengals whatsoever. And the Cincinnati Bengals have stirred some comments up from former Buffalo Bills receiver Isaiah McKenzie. Obviously, not too sure if you actually seen the quotes, Jason, but kind of more so them just kind of trying to add chips on the shoulder of McKenzie. McKenzie kind of just referenced like the Cincinnati Bengals were doing more simpler things than the Buffalo Bills in terms of, they were running more shorter routes and the Bills were trying to more, kind of stretch things down the field. And McKenzie, I believe, said that, if things were played indoor, result like he didn't say the result would have changed, but like their game plan would have changed, I believe is what he referenced. And the Bengals took it as, kind of the Bills think that if it wasn't snowing, that there would have been a different outcome, which was kind of a little bit not what he kind of said. But like I mentioned, that's what pro athletes do, especially the kind of the best ones and the great ones. They find the little bit of motivation because they need that kind of chip on the shoulder. If they're so great, they've been getting all the flowers week after week. They need those motivational kind of slights at them, if you will. So I don't really take it personally, but it's funny to me when you see that kind of, especially on Twitter, right? You're gonna see the JPA football, all those accounts retweeted and all that stuff. You're gonna see it multiple times and shoved down your throat. So intrigued to see how that storyline plays out. But Jason, honestly, like I've been saying, my key to this game, buddy, I kind of won't talk about it too long. Won't keep us on here too long before I throw it over to you. I don't expect us. One, I don't expect Rasul Douglas to probably suit up. I would think that's probably a little bit
They just got here.
unfair. Yeah, he just got here. I love that one, buddy. That was a great inside joke. If anyone's seen the injury report this week, um, I would imagine he's not going to suit up. Just seeing as it's probably a quick turnaround. Linval Joseph, I don't see as well. So like I mentioned, Jason, and I'm probably gonna beat a dead horse week after week here that I'm probably gonna keep repeating myself is I really don't expect the defense to kind of bail this team out from here on out. And the best defense for me, honestly, from here on out is offense. And I think I need this offense to, obviously playing the Cincinnati Bengals, they're going to have to go out and probably score 30. I think that's the recipe to victory. This coming week, Jason, is the offense needs to find that form. And I think they're going to find that form. They're going to rise to the opponent. And, we saw them play with the Miami Dolphins. Their offense kind of rise and kind of play with that urgency of we need to score on multiple drives and we need to keep scoring and keep the pedal down. So I expect them to do that, and I expect them to get into the 30s, and I expect them to walk away with the victory. Whether that's me just talking as a Bills fan with confidence, we will see come Sunday because the Cincinnati Bengals are obviously playing with a lot of confidence, finding their form now at 4-3, I believe it is. So they're playing with a lot of confidence, and obviously they can't lose any more games coming here down the stretch. If they were to lose on Sunday, that'll be their fourth loss here, and obviously they couldn't afford much more. I still expect the Cincinnati Bengals to get in the playoffs and still be a competitive team. So a loss to the Buffalo Bills is like the Miami Dolphins lost to the Buffalo Bills. I really don't chalk it up to holding it against them too much more than just when it comes to playoff time. I would just hold that over to their head. That's just me being a Bills fan, honestly, more so than anything. So excited for this one, Jason. Nervous defensively, buddy, because their receivers are good, and Joe Mixon is a confident running back. If you give him lanes, he's gonna exploit them. So nervous for this one, but I think the Bills' offense. I think Josh Allen will rise to the occasion. I think it was the perfect time, perfect kind of I don't know if Bills fans would like to go as far, but get right game for the offense last week. And we saw I believe it was four receivers up over 60 yards receiving, multiple receptions for each of them. So perfect time for Kincaid, Shakir, Gabe Davis, as well as Stephon Diggs to continue what he does on a weekly basis of them starting to be weapons and contribute on a consistent basis for Josh Allen in the offense. And if they're able to do that come Sunday, I think we're able to win a high scoring, maybe 38-35 game. And I have the confidence in the Bills to win this Sunday, Jason. I will pass it over to you. And how much confidence do you have in the Buffalo Bills this Sunday?
Well, I feel like the Bengals will rightfully be the favorite. I haven't seen the line on this game. I can't imagine it's much more
I
than a
think it's
field goal.
yeah, 2.5, I believe, or whatever they're giving them.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the Bengals should be favored. I mean, they looked very good against the 49ers last week, and they look like they're picking up momentum, whereas the Bills haven't quite looked like themselves since the Miami game. So I'm interested to see if the Bills, like you said, can rise to the occasion. We often see that with the Bills, like you said, the Miami game, but lots of times in past years where maybe they haven't played their best in the weeks going into those games, but when they play a quality opponent, they match them stride for stride. So I'm really excited just because of the way the season ended last year, how the Bills respond in this one. I'm looking at more of the defensive side in this one. I think I do agree that the offense really has to have a big day in this one. I don't think you're going to be able to completely shut that Cincinnati offense down. But on the defensive side, I'm interested to see if there's more of an aggressive game plan than what we saw in the playoffs last year, because they're playing a lot of off coverage, very soft zone coverage. And the Bengals have an offense that's very happy to just take that stuff underneath and articulate the ball down the field. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if McDermott, now calling the plays, obviously he wasn't the last time these two teams played, if that changes. And yeah, I think that's going to be a big matchup in this game, and kind of a chess match between him and Zach Taylor on the other side for the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm excited to see if the Bills can weather that early storm in the game, because I think the Bengals are going to come out swinging. I think they have a lot of confidence right now. They've won, 3 in a row? A huge win last week against San Francisco. So they're kind of feeling themselves right now. So if the Bills can just keep in the game in the first quarter and just kind of get out of it and be tied after the first quarter, only be down by 3 points or something after the first quarter, I think they have a very good chance of winning this game. And the Bills got to be just know who they are. We know they're a team that's capable of winning against any team in the NFL. We've seen it the last 3 years. We've seen it this year against the Miami Dolphins. But which Buffalo Bills team is going to show up on Sunday night?
Yes, great point by you, Jason, about the aggressiveness by Sean McDermott and the defensive coordinator, or just by the defense, excuse me. Leslie Frazier obviously was the man in charge, it's definitely kind of hard to say, because I would imagine Sean McDermott, being the head coach, had his pulse
Yeah.
on things and kind of had his say on things. But at the end of the day, Leslie Frazier definitely did have the final say when it comes to play call, and I would definitely be one of my three keys definitely going into this one is, are the Bills going to be aggressive when we've seen them be a little bit more aggressive in terms of sending some blitzes this year? Maybe it's not sending an extra guy, but it's sending, a nickel and Taron Johnson, maybe it's a linebacker, and then dropping out a defensive end, a defensive tackle. So just confusing him. You're not probably going to confuse Joe Burrow, but if you're able to maybe make him, double clutch, pump, second guess, move on to a second read, hopefully our pressure is able to get there. And hopefully, Jason, last thing before we get out of here, Von Miller. I would love to see something from Von Miller. I think it just, for me, Jason, I think it was just, as of now, I think it was kind of a little bit point. I think they just kind of they maybe put him out there too soon, because when he is out there, I tend to maybe try to ISO cam him a little bit. And it just seems like he has no power, no that he's still trying to build that trust back up into him. And maybe this is going to pay off because he's still building up that callus. And come November, December, he's into form. And maybe I'm wrong and saying that maybe he should have sat out till now in November, middle of November, and maybe he's rusty into the playoff time, where maybe I'm wrong. But I'm expecting, hopefully he's able to show himself this Sunday, hopefully able to make an impact play, whether it's a sack, fumble recovery, forced fumble, anything, batted ball, even a tackle. Baker Mayfield, obviously he almost sacked Baker Mayfield last week, but Baker Mayfield was able to escape on that final possession. So looking for any sort of sign, flash from old Von Miller to return to form after the ACL injury at his age. So looking to hopefully see a splash play or two from Von Miller. Anything else, Jason, before we get out of here, because it is getting late?
Yes, it is. Yeah. just to build on the Von Miller point, I think that when you look at any player that really suffers that torn ACL injury, they usually have a bit of a delay before they're back to their former self. Even Tom Brady, we talked about his ACL injury earlier. That first year back for New England, I think it was 2009. His statistics took a big hit from where they were previously. So I think Vaughn, the best is still yet to come this year for him, and maybe he shows up in this game.
Yeah, buddy. So a lot of good matchups this weekend, folks. Week 9. Jason and I continue to say it. The season absolutely flying by. I can't believe we're in November already. It is absolutely mind-boggling that we are halfway through the season, and things are going to start to heat up, folks. Games are going to start to matter even that much more. And this Sunday is a test of that with Buffalo Bills, Cincinnati. Who else do we got? Kansas City, Miami, obviously. Baltimore, a lot of good games this weekend. So big time matchups and should be an exciting weekend in football. We have a 4-game slate this Sunday that should be a banger with 6:30, 10 o'clock. I guess I should say 10:30, 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock for Jason. And what is it, 7:30? Jason, or what time does Monday night or Sunday night football kick off? 8:30.
Yeah, 8:20 ish. Yeah.
Jesus, that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, enjoy a weekend of football, folks. And I guess before we get out of here, Jason, I got to throw it in, buddy. You excited for a Saturday of Canadian football this weekend?
Yeah, I'm so excited. I've just been waiting for the playoffs to start for so long now. It feels like the playoff picture in the CFL has been set for a while now, with the exception of Calgary sneaking in. So, very much looking forward to Saturday. Are you going to the game on Saturday?
Absolutely, buddy. I cannot
Nice.
wait. My first BC Lions, my first CFL playoff game in general. So excited to be in the building, and hopefully it's a good time. Hopefully it's a W, and I'm not the bad luck charm, and I'm not going to be. So we're going to talk the win into the atmosphere. But excited for that one, Jason. I don't think we've ever talked about this, but are you a U Sports fan at all? Where you watch the playoff games at all this weekend?
Not really. I follow what's going on, like the scores of the games, but I haven't been able to tune into a game this year, unfortunately.
Yes, I've grown a love for the U Sports scene this year. Obviously, a good buddy of mine from high school went to the University of Western. So when he was there from 2015 to 2019, a part of the Vanier team in 2017, got used to watching them. Jason, if you're able to board and maybe the we're waiting for the East final or semifinal or whatever on Saturday, OUA TV is free. So the games are free. Playoffs, I believe, are this weekend. Some good matchups. I believe it's Windsor, Laurier, and Western, and I forget who's the other one. So good matchups in the OUA. Not too sure. The AUS actually will be some good matchups as well in Montreal and Laval playing two other teams I forget, but Montreal and Laval should come out and play for the AUS title. And then UBC, man, I'm excited for that one. I'm going to try to have it on. It's at 1 o'clock. I was going to try to go to the game before the BC Lions game, but I want to try to have a little bit of fun and go to the tailgate and all that sort of stuff. So not going to do the double dip this time, but UBC obviously playing Manitoba. I was able to see that game in October. It was October 15th when Manitoba came out here last time. Kind of grew my fandom for U Sports that much more, Jason. So I'm going to try to dabble in it a little bit more and try to get that content out even that much more. But just a reminder to anybody out there, Jason, you as well, support U Sports. I know it's hard this Saturday, folks, because playoff football in the CFL is in full effect, and it is one and done here from here on out. So it's going to be hard to catch a U Sports, but if you are bored and have some free time, throw it on. And who knows, even if you are able to subscribe to Canada West TV, you're able to get the games on demand afterwards and catch them after. So support Canadian football if you're supporting NFL. It's a great game up here. Except Jason when they're doing onside punts
Oh my
or the
god.
little pooch punts. That's a story for another day. Well, we're not a CFL show, but thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. We will see you guys next Thursday night. Back to our regular schedule program on Thursday nights after every Thursday night football for the rest of their season. Enjoy your guys' weekend, and we will see you guys next weekend. Thanks for joining.